depths of the internet, where the most obscure and unsettling mysteries lurk, a new horror emerged, one that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to uncover it. It was a game like no other, a digital nightmare known only as the Hollow Program. Unlike conventional horror experiences, this game had no objectives, no clear narrative, and no explanation for its existence. It simply was. The first mention of the Hollow Program surfaced on an anonymous message board dedicated to urban legends and unsolved mysteries. A user, going by the name of Null Root, posted cryptic screenshots and short, distorted video clips of the game in action. The footage showed a first-person perspective moving through a decayed, black-and-white world filled with empty rooms, endless corridors, and strange flickering lights. The atmosphere was oppressive, suffocating, as if the game itself was alive, watching, waiting. The soundscape was even worse. Instead of music, players were bombarded with eerie whispers, distorted voices, and mechanical humming that never ceased. Occasionally, a low, guttural growl would reverberate through the speakers, forcing many to rip off their headphones in fear. The game's audio seemed to respond to the players' actions, growing louder the deeper they ventured into its void. But what made the Hollow Program truly terrifying was what it showed, or rather, what it forced players to witness. As they navigated the abandoned corridors, faint figures would appear in the distance. Shadowy, elongated forms standing motionless, their heads slightly tilted, as if observing the player. Approaching these figures would cause the screen to distort, the game would stutter, and suddenly, the figures would be closer. Always closer. As the game progressed, things became even more unsettling. The walls were covered in indecipherable symbols that pulsed and shifted when looked at directly. Occasionally, the screen would flash disturbing images. Old photographs of unknown people with their eyes blacked out, cryptic phrases in dead languages, or grainy footage of empty streets at night, filmed from an unknown perspective. One recurring image that disturbed players the most was a grotesque, faceless figure staring directly at the camera, its mouth impossibly wide, as if screaming, but no sound ever accompanied it. Then came the voices. Random, whispering phrases in different languages, some reversed, some slowed down to an inhuman level. Some players claimed to recognize words buried in the noise, pleas for help, desperate cries, even phrases that directly addressed the player by name. How the game knew their names remained a chilling mystery. The true horror struck when players realized that the Hollow Program had no exit. There was no menu, no way to pause, no way to shut it down normally. Many reported that their computers became unresponsive after playing, forcing them to perform a hard reset. Others claimed the game reappeared on their systems even after deletion. Some even spoke of real-life disturbances, flickering lights, whispered voices in the dead of night, the sensation of being watched. Then, Null Root vanished. His account was deleted. All posts relating to the Hollow Program were erased, as if they had never existed. The game's download links led to dead ends. Anyone who had played it found themselves at the center of an unsolvable enigma, left only with the haunting memories of their experience. To this day, no one knows where the Hollow Program originated or who created it. Some believe it was an experiment in psychological horror, a cursed piece of digital art meant to unravel the mind. Others claim it was something far worse, something that wasn't meant to be found. If you ever come across a mention of the Hollow Program, my advice is simple. Do not seek it out. Some games aren't meant to be played. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. And some nightmares, once entered, never truly let you leave. It started with a cryptic post on a forgotten internet forum. A message that seemed meaningless at first glance but quickly spiraled into one of the most disturbing digital mysteries of the modern age. The user who posted it went by the name Hollow Hymn, an obscure handle that, until then, had barely drawn any attention. The message read simply, "The choir sings again. Gather where the echoes rest." At first, nobody paid much attention. It sounded like the ramblings of another internet eccentric, a piece of cryptic poetry lost in the void. But then, users started noticing something strange. The phrase, "gather where the echoes rest," began appearing in various places across the internet. Buried deep in the code of abandoned websites, written in long-dead forums, even scrawled in digital graffiti across the deep web. More unsettlingly, these phrases weren't just appearing at random. They were always linked to one thing: missing persons cases. The first real breakthrough came when a user on a dark web message board managed to decrypt a sequence of numbers hidden in the source code of one of these pages. It was a set of GPS coordinates. When plugged into a map, they pointed to an abandoned church deep in the woods of upstate New York. Urban explorers quickly latched onto the mystery and set out to investigate. What they found would send shivers down their spines. Inside the decayed church, the explorers found remnants of what appeared to be an underground cult. The pews were overturned and the walls were covered in symbols, unfamiliar and twisted, resembling a corrupted form of sheet music. Most disturbing of all was the altar, where an ancient tape recorder sat, its reels still intact. When one of the explorers dared to play the tape, they were met with an eerie, discordant hymn sung by voices that didn't sound entirely human. And embedded within the song was a message, one that, when analyzed, contained the names of several missing individuals. Word spread quickly across the internet. Hollow Hymn had gone silent, but the choir had begun to sing louder than ever. More users started investigating the origins of the hymn, tracing it back to recordings from the early 1900s. One particularly chilling find was an archived newspaper article from 1911. It described a traveling group known only as the Silent Choir, who performed at remote towns before vanishing without a trace. The article mentioned that after one of their performances, several townspeople disappeared, and their homes were found eerily empty, their belongings untouched, as if they had simply stood up and walked away from their lives. More cryptic messages began to surface. A chilling audio file, uploaded by an anonymous user, played a version of the hymn distorted beyond recognition. When slowed down, a voice could be heard whispering, "They are still singing, the echoes never rest." And then, one by one, the people who had been investigating the mystery began disappearing. Accounts were deleted overnight. Users who had been discussing the case in forums stopped posting. Attempts to reach them led to disconnected numbers and unanswered emails. The deeper people dug, the more dangerous it seemed to become. The message was clear. Some things weren't meant to be uncovered. In the years that followed, all traces of the investigation faded. The website hosting the mysterious messages went offline. The church in the woods mysteriously burned to the ground. No official reports were ever made, and authorities dismissed the entire event as an elaborate hoax. But those who had been there, those who had heard the hymn with their own ears, knew the truth. The choir had never stopped singing, and somewhere, in the shadows of the internet, it was still calling out for more voices to join the echoes. Back in 2018, a YouTube channel called Null Exposure emerged from the depths of the internet, instantly attracting cryptography enthusiasts, horror fans, and conspiracy theorists alike. It wasn't just the eerie content that made it infamous. It was the relentless scale and bizarre nature of its uploads. Over the span of a year, the channel released thousands of cryptic videos before vanishing without a trace. The channel's first upload was a video titled 001 Indigo, a 7-second clip showing a pulsing black screen, interspersed with flashes of unknown symbols. The video contained no sound, but when slowed down, faint patterns emerged within the flickers, almost like a hidden code buried in the static. More videos followed, hundreds, then thousands. Each one contained an abstract combination of pixelated visuals, flashing lights, or distorted, robotic voices reading sequences of letters and numbers. Some had unsettling low-frequency tones that made viewers feel physically uncomfortable. Others featured blank screens that suddenly burst into eerie whispers, like distant voices bleeding through from another reality. Most of the titles followed a strict numerical pattern, but every so often, there were outliers, words like breach, void, and threshold, always in all caps. Viewers who attempted to decode the messages found themselves spiraling into a rabbit hole of cryptic anagrams, obscure references, and what appeared to be a cipher that no one could crack. Things took a stranger turn when some viewers reported that their devices would freeze or overheat while watching the videos. A handful of users even claimed that their computers crashed permanently after attempting to analyze the footage frame by frame. One particularly notorious video, Oblivion 0119, was over 6 hours long, consisting mostly of a pitch-black screen, except for brief moments when symbols resembling ancient runes would flash for a fraction of a second. Those who watched the entire thing reported experiencing vivid nightmares for days afterward. Theories began to spread. Some believed null exposure was a government project, an advanced number station repurposed for the digital age, sending encrypted messages to agents through seemingly meaningless uploads. Others thought it was an elaborate alternate reality game, but unlike typical ARGs, this one had no clues, no hints, no discernible pattern. It was as if the videos were meant for an audience that didn't exist. Then came the Contact series, a sequence of videos uploaded in rapid succession over a single night. Each one contained a heavily distorted voice repeating the same phrase, "He is awake." The final upload in the sequence, simply titled Last, was a blank screen with garbled audio, almost like a corrupted file, and then silence. The channel stopped uploading entirely. That is, until 1 year later. In 2019, a new video appeared, Reset. It was only 12 seconds long and consisted of a single frame, an image of an empty room with a mirror, the camera positioned just outside the reflection's reach. Within minutes, the video was deleted, and the channel itself disappeared shortly afterward. No explanation, no closure, nothing. To this day, no one knows who created null exposure, what its purpose was, or why it suddenly vanished. Some say it was an abandoned experiment, while others insist it was never meant to be seen by the public in the first place. But the most chilling theory? That the project isn't over, it's just waiting for the right moment to begin again.